Rubio has said, it has served as a virtual arm of Hamas. It is radicalizing the next generation of Palestinians. It is literally aiding and abetting a terrorist organization as it brutalizes the Palestinian people of Gaza. In fact, many of them—
What if the aid agency trusted to help millions was accused of helping the wrong people instead? That's the explosive debate now surrounding the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, better known as UNRWA. The Trump administration has sharply criticized the agency, arguing that allegations linking some UNRWA employees to the October 7, 2023 attacks have raised serious questions about its oversight and credibility. Officials also point to claims that Hamas has operated in or around UN facilities, saying American taxpayer money should never support an organization that cannot fully prevent extremist infiltration.
Welcome to our witnesses, and it's appreciative to have a colleague that's doing the job you're doing. Mr. Waltz. You know, the UN is filled with inadequacies in its personnel management and its implementation of programs and oversight or accountability of UN agencies. While originally established to maintain peace and security as we develop a friendly relations, worldwide cooperation in economic and humanitarian issues, the organization has now forged its own policy that frequently contradicts the policies of the United States. And one example of this is UNRWA employing proven Hamas terrorists in the Gaza Strip. At least 10 employees of the agency were identified to also have partaken in the heinous acts of October the 7th. Another example of this is when the UN interim forces in Lebanon personnel shot down an Israel surveillance drone that was conducting a mission against Hezbollah terrorists. So President Trump and the United Nations Ambassador Mike Waltz have taken a step in the right direction to ensure that the UN acts in the interest of our member countries instead of formulating its own policies that serve well its contributions and its balance sheet. So how can the U.S. effectively conduct oversight within UN agencies to ensure terrorists and human rights violators aren't retained for employment?
As a result, the administration is calling for a major policy change. Instead of continuing funding under the current system, officials want stricter background checks for aid workers, stronger financial oversight, and alternative organizations to deliver humanitarian assistance in Gaza. Their message is clear: humanitarian aid must reach civilians, not armed groups. But the issue is far from simple. Supporters of UNRWA argue the agency has provided education, healthcare, and emergency assistance to millions of Palestinian refugees for decades. They warn that replacing or defunding it without a reliable alternative could leave vulnerable families without critical support during an ongoing humanitarian crisis.
That's a very kindly stated question, Representative Baird. I appreciate your service as well, but not an easy answer. We are trying to get oversight and effectiveness and, frankly, better leadership for many of these UN missions across the board. In the case of UNRWA, as Secretary Rubio has said, it has served as a virtual arm of Hamas. It is radicalizing the next generation of Palestinians. It is literally aiding and abetting a terrorist organization as it brutalizes the Palestinian people of Gaza. In fact, many of them just tried to rise up against Hamas. According to the UN's own report, Hamas went on a kneecapping campaign to prevent those protests. So I'll just turn it over to Ambassador Bartos in terms of additional actions.
Thank you, Representative. Great question, important question. Broaden out just for a second. In the aftermath of the atrocities of October 7th, many UN organizations, as one of your colleagues just referenced before, were silent. Silent. UN women could not speak. The organization UN Women refused for months to even acknowledge the sexual violence, the rape, the mutilations against Israeli women on that awful day. So for the UN to lecture about these things is offensive, should be offensive to every American. UNRWA, as the Secretary has boldly and very clearly said, and it's an honor to serve under his leadership, he has boldly and clearly said, UNRWA will have no future in Gaza, no future. I had the honor to deliver remarks on behalf of the United States a couple weeks ago at a pledging conference for UNRWA, and I said on behalf of the United States, doing the same thing over and over again expecting a different result, is the definition of insanity. And I looked around that room and said, you all keep contributing, expecting a different result. And every year, same speeches against Israel, same failure to condemn Hamas, same sort of platitudes that you give. In fact, I said, you give the same speeches every year. You don't just change the date. What was interesting about this year, and again, credit to President Trump, Secretary Rubio, Ambassador Waltz, what was different this year is that the acting director of UNRWA actually agreed with a couple of the points we raised. I almost fell over in my chair. He agreed with some of the points, didn't agree with everything. Are we making progress glacially? We're making progress against this important issue, but we are making progress. I think stay tuned, sir, and be happy to come down here and brief your team or anyone here who's interested on some of the work we're doing, not only to reform these UN agencies and organizations, but also to take a different look at how we serve the humanitarian needs in Gaza without the UN continuing to employ terrorists.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and the fact that you made any kind of progress, I think, is admirable for the work you're doing and the ambassador's doing. And so, I think I'm out of time, but I appreciate your comments. I yield back.
Representative Wojcicki. Thank you, Chairman Mast, Ranking Member Meek.
So the real question isn't just whether UNRWA should continue receiving funding. It's how the international community can protect innocent civilians while ensuring aid is never exploited by terrorist groups. Finding that balance remains one of the toughest challenges in the Israel-Gaza conflict. What do you think? Should agencies facing serious allegations be reformed, replaced, or continue operating while investigations continue? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.